Swimming in the ocean is notably different to swimming in a lake or a river. I mean, all open water swimming is exhilarating and it brings so many benefits with it. However, there are some risks associated. The good news being, though, they can be managed with some planning. So today I'm going to be looking at the specifics for the ocean, how to prepare for a sea swim, and what to expect when you take the plunge. Before I got in the car and headed to the beach today, I did a little bit of research. And when it comes to sea swimming, there are so many variables that a little bit of pre-planning can just make your experience that much more enjoyable and also much safer. And a forecast is a good place to start, not only on the day, but also actually looking at the few days prior, as if there's been heavy rainfall that could affect a lot of runoff, maybe there's pollutants in the water. Or if there's been a storm out at sea, that can also churn up and make the water murky and maybe bring with it some debris as well. And then obviously you need to look at what the weather is looking like it's going to be for the day. And you want to take into account things such as wind, as that will change the direction or the strength of the wind can affect the types of the waves, the size of the waves, and also the currents. And then you've got things like sea fog or local fog. If visibility is poor, you don't want to be getting in the water, because not only will you not be able to see anybody, more importantly, people won't be able to see you when you're out there. And then, of course, air temperature, so you know how to be prepared to get warm or cool down afterwards. And then there's the surf forecast, which can give you really specific ideas of what the waves are going to be like at a certain beach. As different beaches have different angles and the waves can be completely different just around the corner. You can get really detailed info on the height of them, whether it's going to be clean. And this is great for obviously knowing your ability and what waves you're happy to swim out through, but also whether to expect the beach to be really busy with surfers, as surfers and swimmers don't necessarily always go together, or maybe the swell is just going to be building too much and you'd rather stay away that day. Currents are ever changing in the sea due to the tides and the contributing weather conditions. It's easy to look up online the time of high and low tide. High tide is 6 hours after low tide and so on, so it's ever changing. And then there's neaps and springs to consider as well. A neap tide is when there's less lunar pull, so the tide is basically not moving as far. High tide isn't that high, low tide isn't very low. Spring tide, on the other hand, is when you have a new moon or a full moon, so there's more lunar pull. The tide is moving a huge amount, so you'll see an extremely high tide and an extremely low tide. And this obviously means there's a greater body of water moving a further distance, so the currents are likely to be stronger. And this tends to be more notable when you're in an estuary, because the water's being squashed into a small area. When it comes to the sea, it might be less notable, but certain currents can form, and it's when you really need to get some local lifeguard knowledge just to find out how the tide is affecting where you plan to swim. And talking of which, I think it's time I went to get a little bit of local knowledge from a lifeguard to find out just how to read the water before you get in and get a few more general swim safety tips.
Yeah, so how to spot a rip current. Basically, you're kind of looking for no waves, really. What happens is the energy from the waves is pushing up the beach, and all that water's flowing up. And what it's looking for is deeper, lower sections of sand where it can flow back out to sea. So where you see that there are no waves, or perhaps this awkward choppiness, the confusion in the ocean, and no lines of swell, that's a good indication of a rip current. And they don't go out forever. They're not going to take you to, the United States or wherever from here. They go out, just out back of the surf line, maybe at most sort of 60, 70, 100 meters, depending on how big the surf is. So the worst of it is if you sort of end up going out in one, just relax, chill. It's not the end of the world, but you've got to just kind of gather your thoughts, have a look around you, see where the waves are, where they're actually breaking, and try and swim yourself back into the surf line. Because once you get back in those waves, all the energy is traveling back towards the beach, and obviously that's going to help you. So one of the most important things to do is don't swim directly against it, because that will exhaust you. If you can swim sort of 90 degrees, or if you're a very strong swimmer, 45 degrees, so you're just slowly making your way out of it. And then once you get back into that surf line, you'll soon find yourself getting towards the beach. The other thing to remember if you've got a flotation device, so maybe you've taken a little buoy just so other people can see where you are, don't let go of it, hang on to it, because if you do get tired, you've got something to hang on to, and you can raise your hand. If you're particularly on a lifeguarded beach, you should get help pretty quickly. And even if you're not, most people know someone with their hand up in the water it is a sign of distress, and they will call the Coast Guard for you. So when you arrive at the beach, if it's a lifeguarded beach, ideal, go up, speak to the lifeguards, get some safety advice from them, find out where it's good to swim. They're likely to advise you to go swimming in the red and yellow flags, and we would always recommend that. That's the area that we monitor the most, and we put it in the safest place. But if you're going for a further swim, outside of that, along the beach a little bit, we'll understand that, that's fine, but we just need to know. So, it's doubly important that you go and speak to the lifeguards then to make sure that they know where you're going, how long you're going to be, and they can just keep an eye on you basically from there. I would always recommend that you go with a friend, never go swimming alone. It kind of goes in the ocean in general, whatever you're doing in the ocean, try not to do it on your own. The other thing is you can get advice from lifeguards, and also locals. You might see some local surfers or something like that. It's on, as I said before, tides and currents, those sorts of things. So you can kind of figure that out. The last things you really want to check is that you've got all your kit with you. Any safety kit you wanted to take with you. Maybe you are taking a little buoy to mark where you are, those sorts of bits. And just making sure you're ready to go. And if you go to a non-lifeguarded beach, again, if you're going with someone, that's great. But you also want someone to know when you're leaving, when you're expected to be back, so you can check in at that point and they can raise the alarm if you're late, for example. So yeah, just a lot of general common sense, but it helps. So one of the wonderful bits about going for a swim in the ocean is seeing all the marine life. There's some you don't want to get so close to, and there's some that are just an absolute thrill to see. Couple of things to remember, don't hassle any marine life, dolphins, that sort of thing. I would suggest if you're swimming, you probably won't be able to, but if you have a support boat with you or something, just try and give them their distance and respect that. On top of that, you've got things like jellyfish, something that is a little nasty that everyone worries about. Essentially, how we treat them here in the UK is just to irrigate with fresh water after you've been stung by them. We don't have anything too serious here. The basic principle is that you've got a sort of ball of venom, so to speak, with a little hook on the top. That's in your arm. By brushing it, you're kind of just encouraging that venom to go in more. By washing it away, it just kind of literally just gently takes it away. Other countries treat it differently and have more freedom to use chemicals, etc. But basically, don't worry. If you're out a little way and you get stung by a jellyfish, whatever happens, however serious it is, you got to relax and just get yourself back to shore as quickly as possible.
Some really great safety tips and just ocean knowledge there from Phil, and to me, that really drums home the importance of swimming at a lifeguarded beach, especially if you're new to sea swimming. And there's some things that we're just not going to be able to know, and local knowledge becomes invaluable. But that aside, there are still a few other points that it's worth considering before you go for a swim, and one of which is the fact you're going to be sharing the beach with other users. You're unlikely to have that swim space entirely to yourself. For example, here we've got lots of surfers, and I've mentioned that already, but you need to think about things like jet skis or other watercraft. And it's a good idea to check if there's a harbour nearby, and there might be quite a lot of traffic going in and out of that. And as Phil mentioned, it's a good idea to take a tow float with you to help with that visibility, especially when there's other water users. If you're really lucky, then you can get a friend to come out on a kayak and paddle alongside you. But that aside, make sure you always swim with a buddy, and if you can, someone who's local and knows the currents well. And if you don't actually know anybody local, then check up Facebook for some swim groups. It's something I always do. Have a look for open water swim groups, and you'll be amazed at how willing people are to show you where they live and where they swim, and you've also just got that confidence of having someone to swim with. Of course, you can get waves on large lakes, but when it comes to the sea, the waves tend to be far more powerful. And you don't really want to get stuck for too long in the breaking wave area, as it's just going to be really exhausting if you're trying to swim. So as long as you're confident enough, it's best to head straight out through the waves and get out past the breakers, and then you can relax into your swim stroke. And once you're there, try and swim parallel to the coast and keep an eye on the shore to help you spot. But bear in mind that naturally with the rise and fall of the waves, you'll not be able to see the land the whole time, or maybe if you've got someone spotting you, they won't be able to see you the whole time. So make sure you let them know which direction you're going to head in. And talking of which, try and check the current before you head out. And it's always a good idea to swim into a head current to start with, so that once you're a bit more tired, coming home is always going to be easier. Another obvious difference between a lake swim and a sea swim is the salt content. When you swim in the sea, there's obviously much more salt, and as a result, you'll be more buoyant and swimming will feel that much more easy, which is really quite nice. But you do need to be aware that with salt comes the increased risk of chafing, and you might have a wetsuit that you've worn numerous times in a lake with zero problems. One swim in the sea and you could end up having a really badly rubbed neck, for example. So before doing any sea swim, it's a good idea to use a wetsuit-specific lubricant on the areas that are likely to chafe, so the back of the neck and anywhere where there's seams that could be moving across your skin. Today I have focused specifically on ocean swimming, but you still need to remember the general rules of swimming in the open water, such as never swimming alone. Make sure you check the entry and the exit. Obviously today it's a nice sandy beach, but it could be pebbly, maybe it's rocks, cliffs, or even a pontoon entrance. You need to know the water temperature and make sure that you can warm up or cool down adequately afterwards. Before getting in the water, check any sighting points on the land so you know that you can keep your bearings. And of course, only swim within your ability and somewhere that you know is safe for you. And finally, it should go without saying, but just check that you're actually allowed to go swimming in your planned destination. And if you do want some more tips on open water swimming for beginners, well, we've got a video just on that went out recently, so go and check that one out on our channel. And I know I've covered a lot today, and I really hope that I've managed to get across my passion for swimming in the ocean. I mean, it's a magnificent free swimming pool, but it just needs to be treated with a little bit of respect. And hopefully, if you follow these points, you'll be able to stay safe and have fun. So wherever you are, go and enjoy the swim. And if you've enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, like, and remember to check out our social media channels for some similar content.